Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Renito, Chief Scientist with the Institute for Digital Transformation. I want to welcome you to Digital Dialogue, where different industry experts discuss digital transformation topics and issues that are of concern to all businesses. Whether you are already a digital enterprise, or on your journey, or still trying to figure out what that all means, we know you'll find something here for you. Remember, as a LinkedIn Live session, this is your opportunity to interact with these experts. Post your comments and questions in chat for a full interactive experience. Welcome to Digital Dialogue.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy to have everybody join us here. My name is Michael Kubik. I'm a consultant, and I've used strengths in a lot of my business interactions as well as in my personal interactions in my life. We've got 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Ball with us. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 is a Gallup Strengths Certified Coach. We also have Dana Williams with us. Dana is also a consultant, and Dana also has a strengths journal that she does. Two strengths experts out here with me. Like I said, we're hoping that you guys get a lot out of this. We all use strengths, I think, across our entire lifetimes. At least since I took the Strengths Finder originally in 2001, I've used it in business, and it's actually had an even bigger impact on my life with my family. So I don't know, 𝐓𝐡𝐞, if you've got anything you want to say to introduce yourself. And Dana, why don't you go right after that?
Okay. Good morning. Thanks, Michael. I'm 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Ball. I'm a global operations leader and a Gallup trained strengths coach. And I've used strengths for almost 15 years, both in business and, like Michael, in my personal life and in my volunteer life, as well as a member of several nonprofit boards. I've used the value of strengths in the way that I interact with fellow leaders, with team members who've reported to me with some great results.
Very good.
Thank you. I'm Dana Williams, and I'm thrilled to be here, Mike and 𝐓𝐡𝐞, with you both. And I have been working with strengths for over 12 years, and I started it at Southwest Airlines as a marketing leader. We started using it within the department. A mutual friend of ours brought it into the organization, and nobody else was doing it at the time. And we just said, well, we're going to do it. Our HR department said, no, it's, we'll keep doing our other things. So we started doing it, and all the other departments kept asking us, what are you guys doing? Your people are so engaged. What is going on over there? And we started helping other departments do it along with our day job. And in 2015, the president of our company said, I want to be a strengths-based organization. So I was a part of the process to create the roadmap to help Southwest Airlines become a strengths-based organization, and then launched my own business in 2020, December 2020, coming up on 3 years. And what I noticed is that people would learn their strengths, but they weren't living them every day. So I created the Strengths Journal, which is a daily way that you can use your strengths every day. And it's the only Gallup licensed journal of its kind. So I love to talk about productivity with strengths and just how you build your energy when you're living in your strengths every day. So thank you for having me.
And one of the things that I love about strengths and Strengths Finder is it's a positive approach instead of a negative approach. And I think that anybody who's worked for a big company has been through the yearly review process. And in that yearly review process, typically what ends up happening is you get told the 40 ways you stink, right? And so I think, when I first did strengths in 2001, I did my first review. And I know that the woman that I was working for was really dreading doing my review because I was tough. I was hard around the edges. And I went in and I sat down with her and I said, look, I understand the process. I had people that I had to do my reviews for. Said, I've done my reviews already. Wanted to make sure that, you kind of learn with me. Here's what my strengths are. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about the positive about that. I know, what the other things are, and I know we can talk about, what we need to work on. But, let's talk about the positive side of, who I am, of the organization. And after we had gone through that review, she asked me to do the same thing. We bought books for everybody that was in our group. It was, now discover your strengths at that point in time. And then everybody went through the Strengths Finder in our group. We were all doing implementations for our customers. Why don't you, Dana, talk to us about, the positive versus the negative that you see in strengths, and why you think that works so well?
Well, I think, first of all, how many of us have grown up with somebody saying, you do this good, but you really need to work on this. And Dr. Clifton, when he created this, he said, what if we study what's right with people and help them do more of that? And he became the father of positive psychology. This was over 6 decades ago that he created this. And then he bought the Gallup companies in the 90s, and he, came the Strength Finder 2.0. And now we call it Clifton Strengths. You'll have people call it Strengths Finder and Clifton Strengths. It's the same thing. But I think because of the awareness of everybody's unique, you're 1 in 34 million. So why not be you every day? And you're going to get your energy from when you are being yourself and working in your strengths. And so I was teaching a group yesterday, and I said, we don't want you to be well-rounded as an individual. We want you to be well-rounded as a team. Because I think that, and then you can go, oh, I don't do this good, but Mike, you do this really good. And Gemma, you do this really good. You do those things, and I'll do over here. And then it helps everybody work quicker and faster, and holds up this amazing X-ray on the team or on the individual and say, this is what I need. This is what drives me. This is what, gives me energy.
Right. How about you, 𝐸'ma? What have you seen?
It's interesting. I just conducted a session for a chapter of Young Men's Service League over the weekend. And you're right. We tend to have grown up in a culture where, we need to fix things. And after I conducted the entire session, I debriefed the leadership team, and they're like, oh, so we need to fix this. So I had to back up and explain to everyone, lean into who you are. And I think strengths gives you a common language. And right now in this day and age, it's a great language that conveys respect in a way that we also can positively encourage each other. I am concerned. I have teenagers as well, that with COVID, I think we stopped learning how to communicate. We just accepted that these text messages, there's no context behind it. And we tend to look at people through our own filter. That strengths, the concept of strengths gives us a chance to see people for who they really are, and gives us permission and the vulnerability to share who we are and engage people. So regardless of what age, if you're a teenager trying to communicate with your mom, or you're a nonprofit leader, a board member, or even a operations leader trying to communicate with a team, strengths gives you a positive connection and a language that helps you communicate to people where they are. And that's how I've used it actually throughout my career and personal life.
Yeah, I agree. You talked about 2 things that I wanted to make sure that I got to there. One was common language, and the second one was permission. One of the things that I love about strengths and the Strengths Finder is it simplifies everything down. There are 34 strengths that are out there, right? And it gives us a common language so that we understand each other, and what that means to know how to talk to each other again, right? Because I think that if you're searching for the words, what is it that makes you great? And I think that, the fact that the numbers work out the way the numbers work out, right? Your top 10 strengths in order make you 1 in 447 trillion, right? It means there's nobody like you, and there never will be ever again, right? It becomes really important for us to find out, how do I speak with you? And I think we probably all have examples of somebody who we knew that was hard to talk to. I was one of those people that was hard to talk to. 𝐸'ma, why don't you talk to us about that common language piece and why you think that's so important?
The most recent example for me is with my family. So if you look at all my talents, they're, leaning into working with people. I have woo, I have input. I am that mom that my kids warn their friends about. If you get in the car, my mom's going to talk to you. And I said, what's wrong with that? Like, Mom, there's not always parents that do that. So it gave my kids permission to tell, get their friends acclimated to who I am and what I do, and to prepare them, if you will, for what it's like. But it also, when I look at my kids' talents, my son has intellection and adaptability, and his talents tend to be more thoughtful and processing. And as an activator and an achiever, I want my answers right now. So learning about my son's talent or my daughter's arranger talent, she has to be organized and things have to fit in a schedule. And I can't just barge in to do things. We had to give each other permission to work within each other's talents. So my daughter schedules her time with me, and I still get to check it off my list that I checked in with her, right? So we are able to communicate. We gave each other permission, to make sure that we're on the same page. My son actually has permission to say to me, and he did this twice in the last few months, Mom, I know you have a lot of questions, and I really appreciate that you do that. But right now, I don't want to answer them because I'm still processing it. And that's exactly who he was. And I had to stop and respect that space. And it created more trust between us, similar conversations with my team members, right? Meeting my kids or the team members report to me, who report to me where they are, and laying out expectations really helps our communication. And boy, do we need all of that these days, Michael.
Amen. How about you, Dana? Any good examples?
Oh my goodness. Where do I start? I guess I'll start with some of my clients. So, 1 in 2 people are considering leaving their jobs right now, which is really scary. So if I'm a leader, and I work a lot with my leaders on this, is how to engage your employees, not just as you talked about in that yearly time, but how do you constantly connect with them, check in with them on their, how are their work like, what's going on at home, how are they doing? Because so many of them are hybrid right now, right? So really seeing the employee as the whole self and not just the work self, and being able to understand their unique talents and connect with them. Just like 𝐞𝐤𝐜 was saying with her kids, same thing with I think moms make the best really good leaders because they get kids and they get kind of managing that. So it's how do we manage our employees and help them stay engaged? And strengths is a great way to do that, because you automatically can start learning their strengths and say, I value you, I care about you. People at work today, the reason they're leaving is they don't have a leader that even cares or checks in with them. They want to be a part of meaningful work, and they want to know that their work is valued. And if a leader is not checking in, then it's really about the leader. 70% of engagement is up to the leader right now of an employee. That's a huge amount. And so there's a lot on our leaders today. They're not only learning how to understand everybody's strengths, but also their well-being is huge. And that's a whole nother topic we can talk through, but understanding your well-being and then how do you apply your strengths to that at work. And so I see those are really big topics right now in the workplace, is keeping your employees engaged, knowing who they are, and then understanding well-being and how do you help them with their strengths through well-being.
Right. Yeah, I think I have, 2 examples. One is a 𝐞𝐤𝐜 kind of example. And my son, his number 1 strength is ideation, and my number 1 strength is activator. And I didn't find out that was his strength until he was a freshman in high school. And I realized that I had been stifling him because in my activator way, I would say, Michael, I want you to go do this. He would say, Dad, what about? Because that's what ideation sounds like in him. What about? And I would say, Michael, what about I put my foot in your butt? Go do what I told you to do, the way I told you to do it right now. And I found out, that I was, like I said, stifling him. And he needs to go through his process. We all need to go through our process. And so the other way that I use strengths is in my business as a consultant. I tell my clients what my strengths are. And the reason that I tell them what my strengths are is I'm giving them permission to turn me off. Right? Because I'm all activation all the time. I want to go. And most people are not that way. They need to spend a little more time thinking through, what the issue is, what they want to do, what the alternatives are, and how they want to implement those alternatives. And so by telling them, here's what my strengths are, I'm giving them permission to say, Michael, stop activating me, right? Let me get through some of my process, and then we'll get started again. So I think that that's really hugely important. And one of the other things that I like about strengths is I think know yourself first is really hugely important, right? We have the ability to change only one person, and that's us, right? We can give all kinds of advice, right? But we can't both give the advice and take the advice at the same time. So why don't you talk to me about the know yourself first part of strengths and how you see that implemented in your life?
Yeah. Did you want me to, or does it matter?
Go ahead, Dana. Yeah.
Okay. So this was a great example what we did yesterday in a training session with leaders before they can train and learn to be a coach, because we're training leaders to be coaches, not bosses. So the first thing is, what strengths are you going to use for yourself when you're in a coaching situation? What strengths are you going to use for yourself when you're trying to sell a product in? So whatever that situation is. So it's really thinking about their strengths. And you guys have heard basement and balcony, help and hindrance. So a balcony is when you're using strength at its best. So Michael, for you, it's when you're getting things done because you've got that activator. You're going, right? That's your balcony. The basement is going too fast when people need to slow down, like somebody that has ideation or somebody that has intellection that needs some time. So then it's once you know yourself, and then you're looking at your team or your family members. What do they need? Oh, they need me to turn down my activation, or they need me to turn up. For me, I have to turn my ideation off a lot. But I might turn up my individualization, which is a customizer, so that I can customize. Like right now, I'm like, darn, what are Jamea's strengths? I don't know those. So it might be good for us to share each of our strengths. We've kind of told a little bit about it, but that might help the audience as we talk about ourselves and your question, Michael, about knowing ourselves. So my top 5 are ideation, strategic, futuristic, maximizer, and individualization.
Oh, I can see all of that, Dana. I can. And all the time I work with you. And mine are input, relator, achiever, woo, and activator. Very people-focused kinds of talents. And I think when Michael was talking about knowing yourself, and because Gallup trains you when you're a coach, you have to start with yourself first. Yeah. I think one of the most effective ways is to take a talent and then have it reflected back to you by the people around you. So one of the most difficult things for me was the whole relator talent. I read that description. I kept going through it. I'm like, there's usually one that you're like, I don't know if that's really me. And I met with some of my closest friends in my family and said, here's a description of who I am. How does that show up? And so it's really interesting having people who know you best reflect to you who you are and help put it in context so you can do the things like, I have to turn my activator slowly off. As a person with input, not only do I love information, I love to share it, just like all the time, in the car. So you're going to school. Let me tell you about what I know about that. I need to know when and how to leverage those talents, so I'm not in the basement or it's causing a hindrance in my relationships. But the people who know you best will usually, I can't think of a circumstance when it hasn't happened, when I have people that I'm coaching go through this exercise. They're really surprised about the way that their family and their best friends would say, yeah, that shows up. You're always talking to people. Like my kids went to a gala this weekend, and they got in the car, and my son says, oh, Mom, everybody asked about you. I'm like, I don't know that many people. And my daughters, and it's, yes, Mom, whenever we leave church, you have to stop and talk to everybody. I'm like, no, I don't. People just stop and talk to me. That woo thing just kind of shows up. And it's funny how your family and your friends can see it. But it helps you to be really self-aware, right? And what's that impact on my family? They get a little bit of the rolling of the eyes of the kids, but now I have to schedule time, make sure that those things that happen as a result of my talents can be managed appropriately in my relationships.
Right. So I'm activator, significance, self-assurance, competition, and
Oh,
achievement.
okay.
So I'm a steamroller, right? And when we do strengths at our church, one of the exercises that we go through is we have people take the first letters from each of their 5 strengths and make an acronym for it so that they can remember what their strengths are. And sadly for me, my first 3 spell ass. So there's a sense of humor that you have to have there. And I think that part of what I've learned over time is if I point my strengths back at me, then that's what I'm being. If I point them out at the people that need me to activate them, give them significance and give them self-assurance, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing with my strengths. And I think it's important for us to be self-aware and understand those things, right? And Ben Lauers posted just a few minutes ago, right, about the whole communication piece and how important it is to be self-aware and communicate and interact with each other effectively. And I think that, for those of us that are a little balder and a little grayer, we don't necessarily do those things as well as we're supposed to do them anymore, right? It's, I've got the experience and I want you to listen to me and do what I want you to do, and I know that with, younger people that, they want to be heard. Right. And I think one of the ways for us to hear them is through their strengths. Right. And Jamie, you and I have talked about this a bunch, that there's the study out there about, the young people that took the speed reading program. Right. And, who improved the most, and you'd look at it and you say, well, the slow readers had to improve the most, but that's not the way that it works. Right. The way that it works is if you have a strength and you develop that strength, and maybe Jamie, you can walk us through the waterfall, the strengths waterfall that we use. But if you develop those strengths, right, then, or talents, then you can become, truly a leader in the specific world that you're in.
Yes, actually, it's interesting that when you are developing talents, and I think we just saw a question come up
Yes.
about someone asked, if you understand correctly, you can still deliver the necessary messages around performance, good or bad. It's a better way to do it. Yes, absolutely. So I'll come back to your question here in just a minute, Michael. But while that question's up, it's interesting how you approach a problem. If there's a performance problem, so it's typically in a performance problem, there's a lack of expectations either on the leader or the team member that you're having the issue with. So yes, you can use a strengths language, understand where they come from. And let's say I'm an achiever. I like to check things off a list. So if you don't hit these performance targets, it's a problem for me, right? Setting those expectations up front with my team member that they haven't hit those targets and this is a performance issue. That can be an interesting conversation, other than the fact if the team member on the other side has ideation and intellection and is strategic. The conversations about is what you still as an organization need to hit your goals. Well, how do we achieve that? If I'm the leader and I need to make sure that we hit the goal by a certain date and I communicate why that goal is important to the organization, to the team, how are you as a communication that missed that gap? So I've had this experience with some team members that, as an activator like Michael, I don't understand. You should know an input. You should know exactly where you are and how you get there. The conversation turns into, well, we missed this target and this goal. And using the language of strength, you don't need to say, hey, you're an intellection. These are the things you're doing, but understanding where they're coming from and understanding that that person needs a little bit more time processing, understanding the strategy. So giving space to that person to achieve that goal. And how do you move forward by using those talents? That's really important when you have performance discussions. But I, like Dana, believe it should not be once a year, or even half a year. I regularly maintained and taught my leaders, you need to check in at the leadership level at least a month, and with your team if you have direct reports. It doesn't have to be a formal meeting. It could be just a check-in to see how things are going, a meeting where they are. And it doesn't have to be all in the language of strengths. It's not that you have to use this language. You
Mhm.
can say things if you know someone has input. It's, have you read anything? Find that common ground. Use the strengths reports as a guide to the conversations you have with your team in your performance discussions.
Right. Good. I think that's a good change of direction for us. Maybe Dana, you could talk about some of the methods of engagement that we have with strengths.
Yeah, there's several. First of all, Gallup also has Q12 survey, which I use with a lot of my clients. And you can go into Google right now and just do Q12, Gallup's Q12 survey, and you can see that there is a hierarchy of needs for individuals. And this is based on research over, 30 years of time of what employees need. And I think if you just ask your employees the first three questions, which if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these are the basic needs an employees need. And it's real simple, but sometimes we get so busy in transactions that we don't stop and ask our employees these questions. So to Jame's point, coaching is ongoing, leadership is ongoing. You're constantly checking in and making sure and connecting with them, but you can do it in fun ways, right?
Right.
So one of the first questions of the Q12 survey, thank you for putting that also up on the screen, is do you know what's expected of you? Are you clear? And what do I love? Brene Brown says being clear is nice. Being clear. What is it that, because people get confused and they're afraid to sometimes to ask, well, the boss just told me to do this and I'm not sure, but I'm not going to ask. So are you clear on everything? We've changed. We've pivoted this week. Have you got clarity on what you need to do? So clear on the role clarity is the biggest thing, especially in the midst of the changing workplace. And so that's number one. And you can ask it easily, like, hey, we just talked about this project. Are you clear on anything that you're confused about? Anything coming up for you that I can help you with? That's a quick connect. The second thing is, do you have the tools you need to do your job? So I was working with a group and they had done the survey and this came out really low. And the leader's like going, guys, what do you need? And they're like, well, we kind of need a computer here and we need this, but we're afraid to ask. He's like, oh my gosh. And he got the equipment for him right away. But it's just saying, do you have the tools you need to do what we're asking you to do right now? Is there a software? Is there something you need? Yes, you might be. I worked in a company where we were always on a short budget, but maybe there's a resource that they need to help them do their job. So number two, do you have the tools you need to do your job? And then the third thing is, are you telling them? Are you getting them to do what they do best every week with their strengths? So how have you been able to use your strengths this week? Or maybe you just assign them a project. Okay, and I'm going to use Jama as an example. Jama, which strength do you think you're going to use to help you get that done this week?
Right. Yes.
Is there somebody you need to partner with that has a strength you don't have on our team that I can, help encourage you to go with? It's just giving them that support, but yet calling out to them, I value your talent and I want you to use that. So that's kind of the three things I would focus on for engagement. Just you're a winner if you can get those done with your people every week.
Dana, I'm curious because I've used the Q12 and I think it also gives permission, a safe haven for a team member to give feedback if leaders manage it properly, of course. But there is that one question: do you have a best friend at work?
Yes,
I'm curious about how you address that with the leaders that you coach.
Yeah, that comes up quite a bit, and usually it's about trust.
Right.
So think about people want to have somebody in the workplace that they trust. Like, oh my, I just had a fight with my husband. I need to talk to somebody about, can you listen? Just, it could be personal. It could be professional, but it's just that one person in the hybrid environment, in the office, wherever you are, that you feel like, oh, I can go to this person and she'll just listen, or he'll just listen to me and give me some advice. And it's somebody that you just do life with, that you might talk about your external life as well as your professional life with. And And it's funny, I had, well, you all know Ann. So Ann was my best friend at work. And then she left. I was like, ah. So I had to kind of go recruit another person at work to be my best friend. But it wasn't hard. I just said, oh, this is the other person I really rely on that I can talk to and share life with. So I think that's a good question.
I think it's interesting that we don't realize until we're in it how much work is so much a part of our life, and why that kind of relationship is really important to our success and the team's success. It doesn't mean, relationships matter, meeting people where they are, whether or not you have woo or activator, whatever your talents are, even if you have deeply intellectual talents, you still need someone. We're all connected. And I love that Strengths gives us that language. Again, we were talking about that, to connect with others. And Michael, we talked about that permission to be able to communicate in a way that people understand.
Absolutely.
I think that's really important.
And I have a friend of mine, I think that he was on, I think I saw that earlier. And when somebody comes to him, he asks him, basically 2 questions. Are you looking for me to just listen, or are you looking for me to solve a problem? Right. And I think that it's really important for us to, understand that as we're entering the particular situation. I think down at a more root level for, kind of methods of engagement, you can print out your strengths, your top 5, and you can put them on, the outside of your door or the outside of your cubicle. You can also take your team and put everybody on your team into the strengths grid, right? And see where people have different strengths, so that if you have a different need, if you need somebody that's strategic and futuristic to look at where we're going to, you can find that particular person and give them that job, right? Rather than taking somebody like me who I'm interested in, let's solve this problem that we have right in front of us right now, not necessarily looking that far forward. You find the right person for the right job, right? Find a gap and fill it.
Right.
I think that that's really important. And Jamie, we kind of skipped over the whole waterfall piece, which I think is, really important for people to think about and understand when it comes to, your talents, right? That they're not strengths right away. You have to discover them, and then you have to develop them. Can you walk us through, that kind of strengths waterfall?
So making sure understanding your talents and making sure you make the time to develop them makes them strengths, right? So just because I have input doesn't mean that I have it and I'm an expert at collecting whatever it is. And just because I'm an achiever doesn't mean I'm an expert at checking things off my list. But making sure you develop each of your talents to its best will help it turn into a strength. Just because you have it doesn't mean you're the best at it. And even if you don't know your talents, I'm picturing people going out into their teams like, hey, what's your top 5, right? If you don't have that ability, I think there are 4 key questions we should ask to help people understand what those talents could be. You get the best of me when, this is part of that permission conversation, you get the worst of me when, you can count on me too, and I need X from you. And the Clifton Strengths language can help you say that. So if I am input, which I am, you get the best of me when you give me information in advance. I need that. If you get the worst of me, and if you don't give me time to process, if I have ideation or strategic and I need time, you get the worst of me if you don't give me time to process. You can count on me as an achiever to get it done. And if I have restorative responsibility, I will do what I say I'm going to do. What I need from you, when I have my activator talents, is making sure that I have a goal or an achiever together. I need to know the end result. What do you expect from me? Sort of like what Michael was saying with his friend. Am I solving it, or am I listening? So setting my expectations for me. So starting with those 4 key questions when you're working with your team can help you either identify the talents if you haven't even taken your strengths test or assessment, but helps you set that expectation with that language. But you cannot really develop these talents into strengths without giving time and energy to developing them, learning more about yourself, and making sure that you use them in the best way possible.
I love that, Jamie. Thank you. This is Digital Dialogue. And, one of the things that I think that we all miss at work is the digital side, the technology side is a tool for all of us. And technology people talk in technology language, and non-technology people talk in non-technology language. And we all develop our TLAs, 3-letter acronyms, and FLAs, 4-letter acronyms for all of our stuff, because it makes it faster and easier for us to talk to each other, right? And I think that if we use those same 4 questions when we look at the total environment of work, financial and operations and technology, if we could ask those same kinds of questions, that we might move our businesses along better, right? Dana, anything that you see out of that? I love those 4. You had 3 before, any other, and I love to be able to take those things and say, oh, I've got 4 and I got 3s, and those are great. You got anything else?
Yeah, I would love for us to talk for just a minute on well-being and strengths and well-being, because we know this is just the future of the workplace, right? 7 out of 10 people right now are suffering, and they're going through, and I watched it yesterday in a session that 2 different people had things happen, had to leave the room, and it's just like, because we're not together all the time, we don't know when people are suffering with well-being. And so being able to know the 5 areas of well-being, and then how to use your strengths to help you with that. Even your family members. We were on a coaching call last week, and somebody said, I had my first mental health situation in my family, and I'm learning about all this. And we all took a moment and said, gosh, that has happened to all of us, and we are here for you. And so bringing in that community, but the 5 areas of well-being, I think, are important to know.
Yeah.
And the first one, and the one that brings the most energy, is purpose, which is career. And then the second one is social, which is, do you get 6 hours of interaction with humans every day? Not, are you just talking to a computer all day long, but are you interacting with humans, texting, Zoom, whatever, a day? Third, how is your physical well-being? What are you putting in your body? What are you doing with your body, working out? And then 4th is your financial. Do you know where your money is, and you check in on your money? And then the 5th one is community. And so what we do is have people, grade themselves once a week on their well-being. And I have leaders do this in the workplace, and then figure out which strength they need. So my physical was going down after COVID, right? I wasn't doing what I used to do. So I used my futuristic and said, if I don't work out or get something going here in the next, pretty soon, I'm not going to be healthy. And so I used my futuristic to motivate me to get that done. So there is a book called Wellbeing at Work, and you can look at the back of that, and you can go through all your strengths and figure out which strength you need to help you in which area of well-being. It might be that your social's down, and you I need to call a friend. I haven't been out with my friends lately. Or community. I need to go and help serve in my community or do something. And all these will bring you energy. And if you've looked at anything lately on the study of longevity, it's about community. It's about social. It's about purpose. It's these things, and they keep popping up. So I'm very passionate about integrating those in with strengths, in with our work in the workplace, and at home with our families.
Awesome. Thank you. So the last piece, I guess, as we run into minute number 40 here, that I want to make sure that we cover is strengths-based leadership, and how important it is for our leaders to understand strengths, understand how to focus on the positive in people. And like Jema mentioned earlier, there's going to be times when you have to talk about negative things, and we all get that, right? But if I want to make a high performance team, the way to make a high performance team is to lead people in their strengths. Dana, you want to start us off with what you think about strengths-based leadership? And again, there's a book for that too.
Sure.
That's out there.
Yeah. And also Boss to Coach is another recommendation I have right now, which I think is a great resource for people. It's the manager, and really helping people learn how to be a coach and know what do your employees need from your followers. They need faith. They need hope. They need trust. and they need stability and compassion. So every bit of communication you're giving to your people, make sure you include one of those areas, of those 4 areas. And I think that is key. Also, if somebody's bringing you a problem and you're in the middle of leading a team and they keep talking about the problem, don't let that go on. Say, tell me what's right with that person. Tell me what's right with the situation. That is a powerful tool because it will shift the conversation. And I think when we're talking about strengths-based leadership, it's about positive. It's about focus on what people are doing right, addressing when things aren't right, but don't let it linger. That's my thoughts there.
𝐸MA?
I would agree 100% with Dana, but I also think in addition to, true leadership is about generating an environment of trust. And in order for you to do that, you have to meet people where they are and know where they're coming from. So allowing them the time to communicate with you and guiding them as a leader in those conversations that Dana mentioned, what's positive. It's so easy for us, regardless of where we are in the level of the organization, to think negatively or talk negatively. It's interesting, right? When you'd rather write a negative review about a place you eat 100 times faster than write a review about what's right with a place, because you just expect it to be that way. You just expect it to be that way. So setting that tone as a leader and making a circle of trust by meeting people where they are through their talents and guiding those conversations are really important to be a strength-based leader. Leading by example, we talk about that. It seems to be a buzzword. We all have to lead by example, but really showing how you do that by setting those expectations. And by the way, being human and humble and understanding when you're not. It's okay for your team to understand that you're vulnerable. We're not superhuman people, super people. If COVID didn't teach us that, I don't know what could have. But it's okay to be vulnerable. It allows that trust to manifest when people know that you too can make a mistake and recover. So you're showing them the way.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that if we all approach this from we do have a little more gray hair. We're supposed to mentor people, right? And I think as a good leader, if you view leadership from a mentoring position, right, you're going to come across better. I think also for somebody like me, who I'm rough around the edges, I'm still rough around the edges. Knowing my strengths, knowing myself can actually make me feel like I have some empathy, which, is an important thing. It's very important at work for us to listen, right? And to really listen more. And I like to say I have 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I should act as though I do, right? And I think that a lot of us miss that at work and in work environments. And Dana, I'm glad, that you're a coach now, right? You've stepped out of your position in corporate America and you can take those lessons. And 𝐸MA, I'm glad that you're a coach as well, because, you take those lessons, you can give those lessons to, individuals and organizations, and they can do good things with those things. And I think that if we take the time to try to make our world more positive, right, we're going to be better off for it. So anything, 𝐸MA, that you want to say to wrap us up?
I would say, if you're, as a key takeaway, there's so much you can learn about strengths. Certainly you can contact any of us, but the 4 questions that I mentioned could be an easy ask for you to do. To asking people or letting them know what you get the best of me when, you get the worst of me when, you can count on me too, and this is what I need from you. That's an easy takeaway, regardless if you know all of your talents. Dana?
Very good.
Yeah. So I a little saying I love to say is you really need to manage your strengths or they're going to manage you. So knowing them and then using them to intentionally each day is going to give you so much energy and confidence, and just knowing that you are made to do what you're doing because you're excited about it. So we want to help everybody be in that unique space every day.
Well, awesome.
Michael?
So, Dana, 𝐸MA, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed the time. I think that we've given people maybe something that they haven't thought all that much about. And you both have given the numbered items out, which I always love because they're easier to hold on to and they're easier to implement. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. Like I said, hopefully everybody got what they needed out of this session and they can add strengths to their lives and be better leaders.
That's great.
So,
Great.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining our digital dialogue. Be sure to join our next digital dialogue on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.